Recap. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao Chapter 1017. Chapter. Upon the boundless sea where the horizon stretched like an endless blade dividing heaven and water, the shattered remains of a once mighty vessel drifted helplessly. The ship had been torn apart, leaving behind only two broken sections, now no more than fragile rafts, creaking beneath the weight of the survivors who clung to them like leaves upon a storm-tossed river. These remnants carried those fortunate enough to escape death. Yet survival alone did not grant safety. Each man and woman upon those makeshift rafts understood this well. Their eyes were fixed upon a single hope: to return to the established marine roots of the Yang clan. If they could endure for 3 days, no more, they would surely encounter another vessel of their clan and be pulled back from the edge of oblivion. But fate, as it often did in the martial world, was cruel and unpredictable. They had escaped catastrophe, only to be greeted by yet another trial. Before long, the calm sea gave way to roaring winds and towering waves. The heavens darkened, and the ocean rose like a raging beast. The rafts were flung about mercilessly, tossed from crest to trough, until even the most steadfast cultivators felt their senses spin and their direction vanish like smoke in the wind. By the time the storm relented and the sea returned to an eerie calm, they were no longer where they should have been. Yang Tiechang stood at the forefront of the raft, his expression grave as he retrieved his compass. His brows furrowed the moment he glanced at it, and the silence that followed spoke louder than any words. They were far, far beyond the known marine routes. No familiar currents, no guiding landmarks, only an endless sea in every direction. There was no choice left. With heavy hearts, they gripped what crude paddles they had and began to row, forcing their rafts forward with sheer willpower, striving to retrace their path back to safety. Fortunately, these were no ordinary mortals. Every one of them was an immortal-level elite. Hunger and thirst were trivial concerns. Their bodies could endure far more than the average man, allowing them to focus entirely on survival. Yet as the sun dipped below the horizon and night enveloped the sea, another kind of tension took root. They rested in shifts, each taking their turn to close their eyes, but no one truly relaxed. Beneath the quiet surface of cooperation, suspicion flowed like an undercurrent. Each person calculated, observed, and guarded against the others. After all, in such desperate circumstances, who could truly be trusted? Dawn arrived with a burst of crimson light. From the horizon, a red sun rose like a blazing furnace, painting the sky in fiery hues. Its brilliance cut through the lingering gloom, bringing with it a fleeting sense of hope. Then, ye there! There seems to be a ship! A voice broke the silence. Far ahead, upon the endless expanse of water, a tiny black speck appeared. All eyes turned toward it at once. Their gazes sharpened, focusing upon that distant point. Indeed, something floated there. Be careful! It could be pirates! Yang Tiesheng warned immediately, his tone sharp as steel. They were far removed from the Yang clan's established routes. Under normal circumstances, no ship belonging to their clan would appear here. The odds of encountering pirates, however, were alarmingly high, but Ling Han, standing calmly among them, narrowed his eyes, the eye of truth activated. His gaze pierced through distance and illusion alike, dissecting the form of that distant object. That's not right, he said, shaking his head slowly. That's not a ship. It's an island. The illusion of a vessel was merely due to the vast distance between them. An island! At those words, a spark of excitement ignited among the survivors. An island meant land, stability, resources, a chance to regroup. If they could reach it, they could fashion proper oars, perhaps even construct a sail. Anything would be better than drifting helplessly as they were now. Without hesitation, they rowed forward with renewed determination. Time passed. Stroke after stroke, breath after breath, the distant silhouette grew larger. What was once a mere speck gradually revealed its true form, a massive island rising from the sea, and with it came astonishment. Many couldn't help but glance at Ling Han, their expressions tinged with disbelief. How had his vision pierced such distance with such clarity? At last, after a long and grueling effort, their raft scraped against the shore. They had reached land. Yang Tiecheng stepped forward, his authority unquestioned. We'll split up, he said decisively. In 1 day's time, we gather back here, search for any materials we can use. With a wave of his hand, He stored away the two broken sections of the ship. This act was deliberate. By removing the only means of departure, he ensured that no one could abandon the others and flee alone. Among them, his strength was the greatest, and his position as captain remained unchallenged. More importantly, he was trusted, more so than anyone else present. Had those fragments fallen into another's hands, unease would have spread like wildfire. Not far away, Luo Wu and Fan Yong exchanged a subtle glance. Through shared hardship, the two had formed a temporary alliance. And now, as the group prepared to split up, their thoughts turned toward a single target, Ling Han. This was their opportunity. Or so they thought. But their plans were thwarted the moment Yang Qiang chose to accompany Ling Han. Their intention to stalk and eliminate him in secret vanished like mist. Ling Han himself felt a faint sense of regret. He still possessed the Crimson Ground locking net, a treasure he had yet to use. Even against a high extreme cultivator, he had no fear, coupled with his 7-kill subduing soul technique, which could stun an opponent's spirit, and the existence of the Black Tower. He was confident he could claim victory over any opponent of similar level. Yet the chance never came. The island stretched long and narrow, its terrain vast and uneven. Their current position lay roughly at 1/3 of its length. Thus, they divided into two groups, one heading east, the other west. The forest before them was dense and ancient. Towering trees, each no less than 300 meters tall, rose like pillars of the heavens. Their enormous leaves interlocked above, forming a canopy so thick that sunlight could scarcely penetrate. Beneath this green ceiling, the world was dim and eerie. Every step felt as though one had entered a forgotten realm. Ling Han's group consisted of 6 individuals: himself, Shu Yanyu, Yang Ticheng, Yin Yuanxiang, Fu Tian, and Jin Jihui. It was clear that Yang Ticheng had intentionally separated Ling Han from those who bore him ill will. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Ling Han glanced toward Jin Jihui, who walked while tightly hugging a sword. "Brother Jin," Ling Han asked with a smile, "you've been holding that sword all this time. Don't you feel tired?" Jin Jihui shook his head without hesitation. "Only by constantly feeling the presence of the sword can one truly understand it," he replied earnestly. "Only then can I forge a sword of true excellence." Ling Han blinked. Was this man a sword fanatic? At that moment, Shu Yanyu's expression shifted slightly, as if recalling something. "Could it be?" she said, her voice thoughtful. "Brother Jin, are you from the Sword Forge Manor?" If it had been any other man, receiving attention from a beauty like Shu Yanyu would have been enough to leave him flustered. Yet Jin Jihui showed no reaction whatsoever. His attention remained fixed upon his sword, as if it were the only thing in the world that mattered. "Indeed," he answered simply with a nod, without the slightest hint of pride. "As expected," Shu Yanyu said, nodding in understanding. "Everyone from the Sword Forge Manor bears the surname Jin." Ling Han raised a brow. "What is this Sword Forge Manor?" Shui Yanyu explained patiently. "The Sword Forge Manor is the most renowned holy land of weapon forging on the Joint Peace Planet. However, they forge only swords, no other weapons. The blades they create are not only sharp and durable, but many possess unique attributes. To a swordsman, owning a sword from the Sword Forge Manor is a matter of great pride." "So impressive," Ling Han chuckled. "Brother Jin, if I gather the materials in the future, would you be willing to forge a sword for me?" Yang Ticheng, hearing this, couldn't help but shake his head. He knew well of the Sword Forge Manor's reputation and their peculiar nature. Though famous throughout the world, they cared neither for wealth nor power. Their only concern was forging swords. Yet even then, whether they agreed to forge for someone depended entirely on their mood. Some had offered vast fortunes and received nothing in return. Others, without paying a single coin, had been gifted priceless blades. Ling Han's casual request would most likely be rejected outright. "Okay," Jin Jihui replied immediately, nodding without hesitation. "Pooh," Yang Tiecheng nearly choked. Wasn't it said that the people of the Sword Forge Manor were eccentric beyond reason? How could he agree so easily? Jin Jihui scratched his head sheepishly. "However, I haven't forged a single sword yet." The truth struck like lightning. No wonder he had agreed so readily. He was merely an apprentice. Yet Ling Han burst into laughter, stepping forward and clapping Jin Jihui on the shoulder. "Then it's settled," he said warmly. "My sword will be yours to forge in the future. Jin Jihui blinked in surprise. You're not afraid I'll waste your materials? Others, upon hearing such a confession, would likely withdraw their request immediately. At best, they might change the subject. But Ling Han shook his head. Earlier, you spoke of wanting to understand the essence of the sword through constant connection, he said. With that kind of resolve, I believe you will one day forge a supreme blade. Jin Shihui's heart trembled. Even within the sword-forged manor, he had never received such affirmation, not from his peers, not even from his own father, who had only ever advised him to stop dreaming. And yet here stood a man who believed in him without hesitation. More than that, hearing his own words repeated back to him carried a strange resonance, like meeting a kindred spirit in the vast martial world. Emotions surged within him. All right, he declared, clenching his fists, his eyes shining with newfound determination. In the future, I will definitely forge a supreme sword for you. The quiet youth who once spoke little now seemed transformed. Words flowed from him endlessly as he regarded Ling Han not as a stranger, but as a true confidant. Brother Ling, he said with burning passion, I will forge the strongest sword in this world. The storyteller's voice rose slowly, like mist curling over a silent battlefield. The strongest sword? Ling Han repeated, his brows lifting slightly in surprise, as though the words themselves carried a weight too great to accept so easily. In the boundless world of cultivation, where mountains tower beyond mountains and the heavens themselves seemed without end, who would dare claim the existence of the strongest? Strength was a path without a peak, an endless climb where every summit revealed another beyond it. Even Yang Ticheng and the others exchanged glances, their heads shaking faintly. To them, such words belonged only to the dreams of children, bold, naive, and untethered from reality. Yet Jin Jihui stood firm, his gaze burning with an unyielding fire. The strongest sword, he declared again, his voice trembling not with doubt, but with conviction. I will forge it. I must. Ling Han's interest was instantly piqued. This was no ordinary boast. There was something deeper behind it. And how do you intend to do that? He asked, his tone calm but sharp, like a blade testing the edge of another. Jin Jihui hesitated for only a heartbeat before speaking. His world had always revolved around the forge, the clang of hammer against metal, the dance of fire and steel. And now, standing before someone he regarded as a true confidant, he did not conceal his thoughts. I am studying a kind of material, he said, his voice lowering as though revealing a hidden treasure. If I can successfully refine it, then perhaps, just perhaps, I can create the strongest sword. A snort of disdain broke the moment. Pu Yang Ticheng and the others could not help themselves. Their expressions turned skeptical, even dismissive. What kind of material could possibly possess such heaven-defying properties? If such a thing truly existed, it would have long been seized by the great powers of the world. How could it remain in the hands of a lone dreamer? But Jin Jihui paid them no mind. Their doubt was nothing more than background noise to him. His eyes remained fixed ahead, as though already gazing upon the blade he had yet to forge. This material, he continued, is not merely a material. It is a king among materials, one that holds limitless potential. Ling Han listened carefully, nodding slightly. He understood the constraints of forging better than most. When we forge a sword, Jin Jihui went on, no matter how skilled the craftsman, no matter how much effort is poured into it, the result is still bound by the nature of the material itself. True, Ling Han agreed. A piece of level 1 godly metal can never become a level 2 god tool. The foundation determines the limit. But Jin Jihui's eyes gleamed brighter. Exactly! But what if, he said, his voice rising with excitement, what if I could extract not just a material, but its very essence, and forge that essence into a weapon? He took a step forward, his hands trembling as though shaping an invisible blade. That weapon would not be fixed. It would grow. It would devour other materials, other god tools, and evolve. His voice echoed through the jungle. From level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to level 3, endlessly improving, endlessly ascending. Silence fell. Yang Ticheng and the others froze, their eyes widening, their jaws nearly dropping open. For a moment, disbelief warred with something far more dangerous, a god tool that could continuously evolve. Even imagining such a thing sent a chill through the spine. If it truly came into existence, it would overturn everything. The entire world of cultivation would be shaken to its core. Ling Han, too, stood stunned. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. He reached out and placed a firm hand on Jinjui's shoulder. "Brother Jin," he said, his voice steady yet filled with admiration, "you are a genius beyond compare." Jinjui's body trembled slightly. Those words were not ones he was accustomed to hearing. When he had shared this idea with his clan, he had been met with ridicule. Even his father, the one who believed in him most, had dismissed it as an impossible dream, urging him to abandon such fantasies. But now, "Brother Ling," Jinjui asked, his voice almost fragile, "do you truly believe that I can forge such a sword?" Ling Han's smile deepened, calm and resolute. "If you never try," he said, "then the answer is already no. There will not even be the slightest chance." He paused, his gaze sharpening. "But if you pursue it with everything you have, then even if the chance is 1 in a million, there is still hope." Those words struck like thunder in Jinjui's heart. "Yes, yes, yes!" he nodded repeatedly, as though awakening from a long slumber. In that moment, Ling Han was no longer just a companion. He was a kindred spirit, someone who truly understood him. Jinjui felt a surge of gratitude so profound that he wished nothing more than to devote himself completely. Meanwhile, Yang Tiecheng and the others lost interest. To them, the idea of the strongest sword remained nothing more than a beautiful illusion, impressive in theory, impossible in reality. "Brother Ling," Jinjui said earnestly, "when I forge this divine sword, I will give it to you." Ling Han chuckled lightly. "Then I'll be waiting." Jinjui nodded solemnly. He had already made his decision. He had encountered a bottleneck in his forging, and this journey had been meant to clear his mind, to seek inspiration. The life and death battles of the past few days had indeed granted him new insights. Though he lacked worldly experience, he was not foolish. He kept his deeper thoughts to himself. Once he returned, he would enter seclusion. And when he emerged, perhaps he would have already broken through. Perhaps the strongest divine sword in history would finally be born. With that silent resolve, the group of 6 continued forward through the shadowed jungle, their footsteps echoing faintly beneath the towering trees. Then, in the span of a single step, the world changed. The dense jungle vanished as though cut away by an invisible blade, replaced by blinding sunlight and open space. The 6 of them stopped abruptly, their eyes widening in unison. Before them yawned a pit. Not an ordinary pit, but an abyss so vast, so incomprehensibly deep, that it seemed to devour the very concept of scale itself. It occupied nearly 1/3 of the entire island. Its walls were sheer, perfectly smooth, like polished mirrors, offering not the slightest foothold. It was as though a colossal pillar from the heavens had descended and pierced the earth, leaving behind this gaping wound between sky and ground. The transition had been so sudden that it sent a chill through their spines. Just one step earlier, they had been walking beneath the cover of trees. One careless step more, and they might have fallen straight into oblivion. The gravity here was terrifyingly strong. Flight god tools were rendered useless. If one fell into this abyss, there would be no return. At sea, there was always hope. Currents to follow, shores to reach eventually. But here, this was a prison without escape. They cautiously approached the edge, leaning forward to peer into the depths. All they saw was darkness. Endless, suffocating darkness, as though the pit extended all the way to the planet's core. If that were true, then even a heavenly body tier elite would not survive the fall. The divine flames within the planet would reduce everything to ash. A shiver ran through them. Quickly, they stepped back. Even looking into it felt dangerous. The pull of gravity was enough to unbalance them. One misstep, and it would all be over. "Lord Yang," Ling Han asked, his voice steady despite the tension, "have you ever heard of this island?" Yang Ticheng's face was filled with astonishment. Slowly, he shook his head. "I must apologize," he said. "Though the Yang clan is known as the overlord of the Star Sea, I have never encountered such an island." Even the Yang clan did not know. The weight of that realization settled over them like a shadow. Mystery filled the air, but with it came danger. Ling Han did not hesitate. He turned, chopped down a massive tree with a single strike, and dragged it toward the edge. With a powerful motion, he hurled it into the abyss. Shoo! The tree fell, shrinking rapidly into a tiny black dot before vanishing entirely into the darkness. They waited and waited. No sound came, no impact, no echo, nothing. Ling Han's eyes narrowed slightly. The bottom is not connected to the sea. The others nodded. Though the terrain had risen and fallen during their journey, the sea level was nowhere near this depth. If the pit connected to the ocean, they would have heard the splash long ago. If it did connect, they could have explored it, perhaps found a waterway leading back to safety. But now, the depth was unfathomable. Tens of thousands of meters, perhaps more. It was terrifying. Ling Han activated his eye of truth, golden light flickering faintly in his gaze. But even that could not pierce the darkness. He could not see the bottom. Yang Qisheng's expression suddenly changed, his body tensing. In the next instant, Ling Han and the others reacted as well, their senses sharpening as they turned toward the jungle to their left. Voila! The dense foliage parted. 3 figures stepped out. They were not Luowu, Fan Yong, or Liu Ying. Instead, 3 young men emerged, each seated atop a fearsome beast, a tiger, a wolf, and a panther. At first glance, the beasts appeared alive, their forms imposing and ferocious. But upon closer inspection, something was wrong. Their movements were too rigid, their presence too hollow. These were not living creatures. They were constructs, forged from metal, cold, unfeeling, puppets. Yang Ticheng's voice rang out, sharp with recognition. Puppeteers!